Elon Musk just confirmed huge Tesla news, and there's so much Tesla news today. Let's go through everything. You will want to pay attention to this episode. And here it is. Elon Musk reposted this post from Sawyer saying that Tesla is now officially hiring engineers to prepare for mass production of Optimus. So Tesla bulls are admitting that this is actually big. We are definitely celebrating this. And we all know that James can be quite skeptical about Tesla, but even he says it looks like this is happening. And you can easily confirm this news yourself by going to Tesla's website, and you will see that there are at least 12 jobs related to the production of Optimus at the Fremont factory in California, and Tesla has said that it has plans to build 10,000 bots this year and long-term believes it could be worth $10 trillion in revenue. Now, on the earnings call, Elon Musk did say that the 10,000 number, that's just an internal goal, and he doesn't believe that Tesla will actually achieve it, but they are trying to, and there is more to celebrate. Check this one out. This is from a Tesla employee. My team is turning Tesla Bot into a reality. We are building Tesla Bot in our Fremont factory in California, and we are looking for engineers up for the challenge of getting this product ramped up for high volume production. You know, sometimes Elon posts something and he says one thing, and then we hear from the Tesla team, and it turns out it's not as big of a deal as Elon made it sound to be. That has happened a few times. It's not very often, but it has happened. But here we are not seeing that at all. We have more confirmation from Tesla employees directly that indeed this is going to be for Tesla to ramp up high volume production specifically for the Tesla Bot. And looking at the job titles that are available, indeed, these are going to be for mass manufacturing of the Tesla Bot. I personally certainly expect the market to actually not react to this news at all, completely ignore it, and maybe even take this negatively, because maybe they are thinking, oh, Elon Musk and the team, they are taking valuable resources and they are putting it on this nonsense, the thing that will never ever happen, just like they put resources on EVs back in early 2010s, and obviously that went nowhere. Until suddenly the stock just exploded, despite the mass pandemic happening and everyone getting disrupted and everyone suffering from supply chain issues, but not Tesla. For much of Wall Street and for many so-called investors, long-term is 2 or 3 years for them. Like, beyond 3 years, it's becoming eternity for them. And people like that, almost all of them, underperform S&P 500. And people like that, when they heard about the Model Y, they just said, oh, it's just an oversized Model 3. This is not going anywhere. And if you were a Tesla stock investor, you likely understood, no, this is going someplace. It's going to a place that's very good for your bank account. And if you look back at Tesla's history, you will always see that Tesla is working at least on the next 2 big things, and both of these things feel like they're an eternity away, and especially the second thing is an eternity away. For example, go back to, let's say, 2018. Tesla was already focused on trying to develop full self-driving technology, but they didn't even have a Model Y. And Wall Street, they thought that car is not really going to happen and that it's not going anywhere. In the meantime, Elon Musk was saying that this new vehicle, which eventually became the Model Y, would become the best-selling vehicle in the whole world, not just the US, not just Europe, in the whole world. And not just by revenue, by the number of units sold, even though it was supposed to be quite a bit more expensive than the best-selling vehicle at the time, the Toyota Corolla. And look what happened. It actually became true. At the time, that was deemed to be basically impossible by most of Wall Street and most of well-known, let's call them reputable investors. So I sometimes hear people, but Elon Musk doesn't deliver on his promises. Are you sure? Even if he doesn't deliver on, let's say, all of his promises, if he just delivers on half of the impossible promises that have been made, that's still incredibly good for Tesla stock investors. Currently, Tesla is working on releasing the new, more affordable models, plural, and then, at least that's what Tesla is saying, and that's what Elon Musk is saying, and then Tesla is working on solving full self-driving, and they announced that in June this year, they are launching unsupervised robotaxis in Austin. Now, I personally, if there's a delay, I don't really care much about that. My timeline has remained the same. In terms of what I'm making my investment on, I'm just predicting before 2030 it will become safer than human driving. At this point, is going to happen much faster. But if you have been watching this channel for a while, you know that I can be a bit too conservative sometimes. For example, I became a Tesla stock investor in early 2019, and I wasn't expecting much from Tesla for the next 5 years, and then BAM! In 2020, the thing exploded. The point that I'm trying to make here is that I'm getting excited about the bot now. And there's another thing to be excited about, full self-driving, and that thing is happening in front of our eyes. If you don't have a Tesla with full self-driving and you are skeptical of FSD, maybe you should get your butt in a Tesla, turn on FSD, and see for yourself how good it is. Just make sure that the vehicle has hardware 4 and that it has the latest full self-driving version, and prepare to be amazed. But it's sort of one thing to get in a car now for the first time and experience that, and it's an entirely different thing to have owned a Tesla vehicle where you would turn on autopilot or FSD beta and it just was questionable. Like I would have to pay a lot of attention with the first release. I still used it often, but you had to really pay attention. Now, I of course pay attention, but often I feel like this is redundant. I am paying attention, of course, just to be safe, and it's not safer than human driving. But now it's actually such a huge improvement that I get so annoyed and upset if I can't use it because, for example, I'm driving someone else's car. I never quite had that with older FSD versions where I would get into someone else's car and I would say, you know what, this car sucks because it does not have FSD. I just never had that experience before, but now I do. So at this point, if I see someone skeptical about FSD, my first question is, have you tried it? And if not, you just immediately lose all your credibility in my eyes. Now, if you have tried FSD in your vehicle and you have a Tesla and you have criticisms for it, I accept these criticisms. There are certainly issues with FSD still for now, but you cannot deny the fact if you had FSD from the early versions that the improvement has been absolutely mind-boggling and that the improvement still continues rapidly. When I say rapidly, you need to zoom out to like a scale of 1 year. There's no doubt that each year the software has gotten much better. So if this progress continues, we are moving towards the right direction and FSD is going to be safer than human driving. It's just a matter of time. And in my personal view, it doesn't really matter exactly when it gets solved. What matters is that Tesla is the first company that solves full self-driving with a pure vision approach, because that approach is much cheaper than LiDAR. And if you do that with just cameras only, the LiDAR solution is just going to go out of business because it will never be able to compete with Tesla's solution if you are speaking strictly about robotaxis. And look, Tesla is pretty serious about bots. It has 68 job openings right now in 5 locations. So at large, I would say that currently, just like through most of Tesla's history, Tesla is working on 2 supposedly impossible things: full self-driving, and then, even more impossible supposedly, the bot. And while not every single thing that Elon Musk touches turns into a reality, although usually it does, it just takes a lot more time than expected, a lot of these things actually do. And even when I look at things that haven't really worked out, for example, the Tesla solar roof, which by the way, officially it hasn't been discontinued, at least not as of this moment. And if Elon really focuses attention on this, I think he could make it work. So it's just more that, it's just, hey, the full self-driving problem is more important to solve. The Tesla bot problem is more important to solve. And we got Megapacks anyway, and that also requires some attention. So let's make sure that that works. So even the things that don't really work out, in this case, the solar roof, I'm not actually upset about it at all. There are just bigger opportunities. Let's solve full self-driving. Let's make sure that that is fully taken care of. And then we can focus on other things. And even if the solar roof actually worked, would it really be that big of a business as full self-driving would be? I don't think so. I think one of the things that Elon Musk is incredibly good at is prioritizing the right thing in the long term. Now, in the short term, sometimes it feels like, what? The more affordable model has not come out in 2022? What? But if you had your butt in a seat of a Tesla vehicle when FSD V13 was on, you can start to see why Elon Musk was making that decision back then. And it's not like he put the whole company on the line with that decision. And at least according to Tesla and Elon Musk, the more affordable models, plural, are coming out this year. And if you have a hardware for vehicle but no FSD, well, now Tesla is sending out free trials for everyone who hasn't tried yet. There's so much more news happening right now. Elon Musk is set to meet the Indian Prime Minister actually during his visit to the US in about a week, and discussions are expected to focus on Tesla's expansion, collaboration with ISRO, with an eye on the growing electric vehicle market. Acronym stands for Indian Space Research Organization, so that meeting is probably going to be more about SpaceX than it is going to be about Tesla, but we know that Tesla made serious efforts before to actually open shop in India, so maybe talks are going to renew again. We'll see about that. In the meantime, Gary Black predicts that the launch of unsupervised rideshare won't help Tesla stock as it is already priced in and everyone else will be able to do it. Sure, I can agree with Gary Black that everyone is going to be able to do it, but, and this is actually huge news, these automakers are going to get Tesla's full self-driving software. The CEO of Ford, Jim Farley, actually just said that the company is getting closer to deciding on whether to partner with another company on full self-driving, and obviously Tesla would be an obvious choice. Hello. We're not so Pollyannish about our own capability that we are not going to look at other people's system or not believe that level 4 personal autonomy is going to be interesting at some point. And we know that Ford has spent a lot of money developing their equivalent to full self-driving. So for them to even mention that, it sounds a little bit embarrassing, honestly. He said, "We need a strong strategy team to decide. Do we partner? I'm very confident in Sammy and Doug and their technical prowess, but I guess not confident enough. They know the FSD system. They know what's out there. They know the Waymo system as they get democratized for level 4, individual level 4. And so I think we'll make a good decision. But I think, Adam, we're a lot closer to that partnering decision at Ford. And things get even more interesting here. So Doug, who Jim Farley there was referring to, is Doug Field, a former Tesla and Apple executive. Now, Apple, of course, they don't have their full self-driving software, and I can certainly imagine that Doug Field would have some positive things about Tesla, and he would know the inside, or he would be somewhat familiar with the Tesla system, of course. So I think the odds are in our favor, although not guaranteed, of course, because we're talking about Ford here. A company that's losing an unimaginable amount of money almost with every single EV that they sell. But if you remember, actually, Ford was the first company to come to Tesla and say, hey, we want to use your Tesla charger. Can we do that? Can we license it from you, please? And Tesla, of course, said yes. The only real problem here is that Tesla wants pretty high volume, and Ford maybe just wants to dip their toes a little bit and get just a few units of Tesla's hardware put into their own vehicles, but Tesla wants a lot of volume, otherwise it's not worth it for them. Elon said this on the last earnings call. So I'm not so sure that it will definitely be Tesla, not necessarily because Ford doesn't want Tesla, but because maybe the volume required is just too high for them, or that's what they think. Maybe they just think it's too high, and then in reality, well, if you don't take this, then you're just going to go out of business, more likely. So even if it's too high of a volume requirement from Tesla, they should probably still take it. Keeping in mind that Elon Musk before said that from the moment someone decides to license Tesla's full self-driving technology, it's going to take maybe about 3 years for the actual hardware to be put into the first vehicle that a customer will actually get. That's how complicated all of the supply chains and all of the procedures that need to be done are. And then Gary points out other companies that are making progress with full self-driving, but he clearly admits that Tesla is in the lead. This sort of reminds me of 2010s. You know, all of these years that many analysts really said this. Tesla is leading EVs, but EVs are not going anywhere. And even if Tesla does succeed, other companies will soon follow quickly, making a lot of money. And of course, that was quite likely because these companies actually manufacture things. Now you're getting a lot of these companies that manufacture things to manufacture software. So they weren't able to successfully make money from EVs. You know, the thing that actually needs to be manufactured, you know, the thing that they are actually somewhat good at. And now they're going to do something that we're terrible at, software, and they will try to compete against a company that's basically the best in the world at that, Tesla. The company that is led by Elon Musk, the person that has incredible background in software. Not to even mention the fact that Tesla is already leading with full self-driving software. By that I mean specifically without LiDAR or HD maps or geofencing. So yeah, I have a bit of a difficult time thinking that a lot of these companies are going to be successful when it comes to making full self-driving work. And did you see how well FSD performed here? This car was on FSD and it just dodged this vehicle. Great job by Tesla FSD. And I personally think there's a lot of truth in this comment here. The likelihood that Tesla will take over 80% of the autonomous vehicles business, revenues, and profits where regulators allow it is higher than 80%. I'm just not so sure that Tesla will be allowed to operate in China, or even if it is, later maybe it will be kicked out of China. But if that happens, then Tesla will have the US all to itself, and I really can't see China operating successfully in the US. So in my personal opinion, the worst case is that Tesla will at least have all of the United States of America to itself. And the US is a much better market for FSD than China, because in the US you can charge more. And here's some good news for Tesla. Tesla says it has just received the new Model Y's official range figures from the EPA, and they show a 5% range improvement versus the old Model Y, which would give the long range 327 miles of range, up from 311. Now, currently, the new Model Y has a range of 320 that's officially displayed on Tesla's website, but that should be now changed to 327, so that's good. The team behind the Tesla owner Silicon Valley account interviewed 2 Tesla engineers about the Model Y, going through the new features and everything. And here's one thing that I think people didn't sort of know before, but Tesla says that the new Model Y's ventilation system has a new oscillation feature that will be available when deliveries start in March. So the air vents will be able to automatically swing side to side, which is a pretty nice thing if you live in a hot climate. So it's definitely a very accurate assessment that it's cool. And this news here likely is giving us a bit of a Tesla stock buying opportunity. Tesla China is offering insurance subsidies of about 1,100 USD for all Model 3 buyers. Essentially, it's basically a discount. There's a debate about this. Is Tesla losing or gaining more customers by Elon being absolutely the most controversial person perhaps ever in the US history? The most controversial person? I wouldn't go that far. There are some other people that would definitely be more controversial than Elon Musk. But Tesla is already a trillion-dollar company and will be a multi-trillion-dollar company because it has a CEO that wants to take over the world in everything he does. The fact is, so many people like him played a part in Trump's victory. The losers may be screaming loudly, but they lost the election because they are the minority. For example, Tesla made $7 billion on EVs in 2024. Ford lost $5 billion on EVs in 2024. So of course we should bring the less controversial CEO, right? And speaking of more controversial people in the US history, would starting a civil war, would that be controversial, do you think? This one just makes me laugh. Electric writes, there's finally some Tesla shareholder momentum to fire Elon Musk. You mean just like how there supposedly was momentum last year, and despite of that, significantly more than 2/3 of all the shareholders voted to make sure that Elon Musk gets paid. It's a good thing that people like that probably have already sold their Tesla stock shares, just like Fred sold all of his Tesla shares right before Tesla stock basically doubled. Ooh, banks sell $5.5 billion of X loans after investor interest surges. This is very good news for Elon Musk. Elon Musk's power in Washington and the return of big advertisers like Amazon have Wall Street clamoring to get a piece of X. X's finances have hit an inflection point. If you paid attention to things that Elon Musk does, you knew that it hit the inflection point the moment that Elon took over Twitter. And everything after that, it was just a matter of time and execution. There's some good news from Neuralink, basically saying that the tech works. And look at this, the Pentagon said that SpaceX has saved the government over $40 billion. One SLS launch, which is launched by the government, costs billions. One SpaceX launch costs less than 75 million. I can't wait for this company to become public so that all of us can easily buy the stock. Oh, remember how I said that Ford lost $5 billion last year? Well, every single EV that they sell on average has a negative EBIT margin of 98%. So if they sell something for, let's say, $50,000, they not only not make money on it, but on top of that, they lose about $50,000. And their EV revenue was down 35% year over year. Oof, oof. Ooh. And there's a bit of an argument between Gary Black and Omar, and shots were fired. Omar points out that this post is by Gary Black. The point worth repeating is that every EV manufacturer will have level 4 autonomy, basically robotaxis, by 2025. Today is 2025 and we see no such thing. You can read that full post for context if you like, but just what I shared just now is enough to understand the context largely. And what do you guys make of this? I personally have some strong opinions about this. Waymo miles per disengagement reported to the state of California from 2021 to 2024 are displayed on this chart. So the green line shows driverless fleet, the blue line shows test fleet with human safety drivers. And why do you think right now it's actually doing worse than ever before, at least on this chart? Why? Why do you think that is? Maybe it's because this whole chart is mirrored and maybe this is not 2024, it is 2021. But because I'm a nice guy, I am going to zoom in for you, and as you can see, this is indeed 2024 and this is 2023 and this is 2022. So how come their performance is going downhill? It probably has nothing to do with the fact that, for example, before certain companies that were trying to make robotaxis work, they would not record a disengagement or an intervention when a vehicle would just go through a red light because, you know, it didn't cause any danger to anyone. So obviously that's okay. It maybe has something to do with things like that. Now, if you go back far enough, yeah, they supposedly actually made a little bit of progress, but knowing that they were doing some funny business here, I'm not specifically necessarily talking about Waymo, but just overall about these companies. And my personal opinion is that there's some things going on at Waymo as well. So this data here, I don't really take it seriously. And Elon Musk made a post here saying yes to USAID has been propping up the global left via US taxpayer dollars, even in Poland. I think fundamentally with a lot of charities, there is one big problem. As an example, let's imagine that this is Africa and the world, let's say, donates $1.4 trillion. This is how Africa would look then. This is a parody, but this is unfortunately based on true stories. Cathie Wood made news with her new report, The Big Ideas, and in that report, it stated that by 2030, ARC's research suggests that the number of robotaxis will have scaled to roughly 50 million globally, with Tesla at 50% market share. ARK Invest also says that Wright's law suggests that a $15,000 robotaxi is possible. Obviously it is, because eventually EVs are going to be cheaper than gasoline cars, and there are some cheap gasoline cars out there. A lot of them are in China. ARK Invest also says that Tesla's cost per mile is 30 to 40% lower than Waymo's. And Cathie Wood actually believes that Elon Musk is extremely focused. We got some good news from Shanghai Megapack Factory. Mass production is scheduled to start on February 11th. And this slide from the ARK Invest Big Ideas really caught my attention. So basically, ARK Invest is predicting that this quarter in Q1, Tesla's FSD V13.4 is going to have an intervention rate over 10,000 miles per critical disengagement. They also suggest here that V12.5 has an intervention rate of about 1,000 miles. From my personal experience, no. Maybe under some very specific circumstances, yes, but at least where I live, in Vancouver City, Canada here, that's not the case, but maybe in California it's quite a bit better. Definitely not here in Vancouver. So just keep this in mind before taking this other prediction too seriously, but clearly they do think that there is going to be a big improvement. I'm just not sure I would hold them accountable to 10,000 miles per intervention this quarter. However, I agree with everything that Stephen Mark Ryan said here. Once Tesla robotaxis launch, they will aggressively drive cost per mile down as fast as they can, and the limiting factor will be wait times. As this happens, analysts will cry that Tesla should milk profits as much as possible, not understanding that, number one, lower cost equals larger total addressable market. Number two, the more people who can afford to use an electric robotaxi, the more ICE miles are displaced. So these people that were talking about how Tesla is changing its mission from sustainable transport, they are missing the point that full self-driving is basically the main thing that is going to get us there faster than anything else could or would, because EV robotaxis make so much more sense than gasoline robotaxis. So if you are ever unsure what Tesla will do next, refer to their mission statement, but then you still have to think because some of these things are not exactly obvious in your face. And this is a list of autonomous test vehicles in California showing miles and disengagements. I would be a bit skeptical about a lot of this data, by the way. Another way to think about it is this is a list of companies that are going to fail when Tesla solves full self-driving, making it safer than human driving. And I personally believe that Tesla stock is going to $1,000 per share, and then after that, well above it. My name is Matt Posius. Make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't yet. And I will probably be back with another video on Monday, unless there's some huge crazy news before then.